Good morning, Daily Huddle family. Happy Monday morning. I'm Kimberly. This is Zack, and we are here with you for our Money Monday for the Daily Huddle.
Welcome. For those of you that are watching, happy belated Father's Day. And also, as we celebrate Juneteenth and what that means, it's a very important day in the calendar to remember, and what the representation there is and what that means. We should all be free and have the right to do that and to be our own selves. So anyway, I'm so glad to be here with you guys today. We're excited about all the things that we've got to talk about. And this thing that we're going to talk about now may roll over into a couple of different episodes because there's so much about it. But let's start out first with, I realized something that was really strange the other day. When people rob banks, they go to jail. But when bankers rob people, they get bonuses. Think about that one.
It's your 1-2 punch.
As I had our banker on. Jill won't appreciate that.
You'll be upset. Shut up. Maybe you should. Well, good morning, everybody. So today we're going to talk about, can you save your way to wealth? I think it's a big question. It's a conversation that we all have, especially as we grow up.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Sorrel?
I'm about to sign up to be a banker.
Oh, you need a bonus?
I didn't. It's supposed to be banks, not bankers. So it's banks, not bankers. So I misrepresented the joke, but I thought about selling the banker aspect last week and then throwing them under the bus this week. That's kind of a mixed representation.
Such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
But it is a great day to be here, and we can start out with a few of our questions. And so, Sorrel, since you're unmuted, what time is it, and what are you grateful for?
It is now, and I'm grateful for my chiropractor.
I have been there.
Zach's missing his. He's like, when are you working again?
All right. Chase, where are you, and who will you hug today?
Grand day, and happy belated Father's. Amazing pictures, brother. Wow, really, really great. I just had to tell you that.
I'm very blessed.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful. I am here right now in the present, and today I'm gonna hug. I think I'm gonna hug a random person today. I'm gonna remind somebody about hugging today. I think I'm gonna challenge myself and do that.
I hope that goes well.
I hope it goes well too. I'm an engaging guy. I'm going to make it work.
I guarantee you that you will. But I hope you video it because, it could be funny.
Cece, how are you today?
How am I? I am amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I haven't heard your voice in a minute. So good to hear you. Good to see you on here.
Absolutely. Well, guys, let's get started. Let's talk about this. I know as I was raised, and I was not raised by a bunch of entrepreneurs. I was raised by a couple of parents that worked hard, school teachers, but they went to work every day and they knew exactly what they were going to get paid on the end of the month. And they got paid once a month. And everything I was always taught when I was given money at birthdays, or when I would get money before I had income, I was taught that if I saved it, that it would matter at some point. And I still agree with that. I still understand that. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we have, and I'll go ahead and throw out our answer to our question of the day. The truth is, no, you cannot save your way to wealth. There are stories of people that, worked in a job and they saved a lot of their income for 40 years. And when they passed away, they had $1 million, and it was surprising to everyone. But when you look at the math, and Kimberly will talk about this in just a few minutes, that doesn't actually apply to what most people do. Because the rule of thumb in saving and income is to save 10 to 15% of what you make towards your retirement. So would that work in a traditional income scenario?
No, it wouldn't work. Thanks for the question.
No problem.
That's weird. So let's think about saving our income, right? I think that's the biggest misnomer that I think that we have. Should we be savers? Should we invest our money? Should we be frugal? Yes, 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 right? But ultimately, most people can't afford to live monthly, much less for their future, right? Because they're living paycheck to paycheck. Everything that comes in goes back out. Or they're just not disciplined enough. They would much rather go on vacation or have a big, nice boat or something like that than they would plan for 30 years down the road of retirement. For some of us, might not be 30 years anymore. As we were preparing for today, I'm just kind of reading through and picking up some nuggets here and there. One of the things that I read that is so true is, at minimum, you should obviously save some of your money. Period. We all know that. That's a no-brainer. And they say that you should start saving 10% of your money. And this article was like, so if you wake up in 10 years and you've saved at least 10% of your salary for the last 10 years, you've got 1 year's worth of income. And I looked at Zack and I was like, how backward is that? Honest to God, like think through this, right? So if I save 10% of my income, in 10 years, I've got a year's worth of my income. I'm supposed to work for 30 years, right? So I have 3 10-year segments. So if I save 10% of my income for my entire savings career, I've got 3 years that I can retire. So if I retire at 65 or 67, because I'm a good person, and that's what all these people in the world say that I should do, and I retire at 65, then I can live until I'm 68 at the same level of living that I am today without having to go back to work. Okay, great. Then let's save 20% of my income. Okay, then that gives me 6 years of my income. So instead of having to go back to work at 68, I now have to go back to work at 71. Obviously, I know that there's growth on there. I know that money is compounding through those years. So I'm being very literal with how much you have left, but that doesn't work for me. I don't want to work my entire life, save a portion of my income that is probably painful for any of us to save 20%, right? Because of life, everyday life, whether it should be or shouldn't be, probably is, and then only be able to retire for 6 years. Right? We have this dream, this vision, this painted picture of, working forever, amassing your wealth, or at least your security blanket, being able to retire, and in retirement going and living the life of your dreams. I don't subscribe to that. I want to live the life of my dreams now. And I want to never really retire because I love what I do. I know that's a little tangent, but when I heard the save 10% of your income, I think that's probably the biggest thing that's not being like shouted loudly from the rooftops of all of these financial services companies that we hear from and that we listen to and that we subscribe to all day long. When we sit down with families and we're like, how much can you afford to set aside monthly? Between $200 to $500 a month is typically the answer. And that's better than nothing, but it's still not going to get them there, right? It's still not going to allow them probably to retire, but much less be wealthy. So how do you fix it?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand the difference between saving and investing. That's step number one. And investing, I don't mean just necessarily a 401k or a 401k equivalent where you're going to be in the market. An investment can be any number of things. But an investment is something where you put your money to work at a rate faster than it's going to compound in a savings account. So saving is not investing. Saving is investing in the bank, so the bank can then take your money and invest it and help other people with their car loans and help other people with their mortgage loans and those kind of things. And they'll pay you a very small amount, which seems bigger now, right? CDs are advertised everywhere, paying more than 4%. Good grief. How many decades has it been since we've had a CD that paid more than 1%, much less more than 4%?
And what's inflation?
And CD rates. So we use this thing for years to explain to people why investing has got to be a part of your retirement plan, not just saving. There's an adage that, wealthy people dig for gold, poor people worry about the cost of a shovel. And it's about those things that you have to get your mind in the right place, and you have to understand that it's fear of loss that helps most people avoid ever gaining anything. And that's tough, because we're in a fear-based society right now. People get us to buy things because we're scared. People get us to not do things because we're scared. And I think when Kimberly talks about the things that aren't being shouted from the rooftops about successful savings, there's this concern of disrupting, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I call it the sheeple, which is the people that just follow blindly anything that they hear on the internet or from their news station or whatever, without actually looking deeper into those kind of things. So to think that whatever our 401k is being matched at is enough to get us by, the idea behind that keeps us productive. It keeps us going to work. It keeps us showing up. It keeps us doing the things that help other people get wealthy. But we have to actually stop and think, what is this doing for me? And am I doing the right things for me? So we've spent a lot of time talking about personal economy, and Geo thankfully brought that term back to the forefront of my thought process from that. Very much they do. I see the chat. The banks are using the money that's there, paying a minimal rate of return out, and they're investing. They're buying things, whether it be shorts, puts, calls, bonds, whatever. They're investing in other directions with those funds. But thinking about a personal economy, you have to build that economy around what your goals are, and make sure that your time frames and all those kind of things fall into place. But outside of just investing the dollars that you make, we have to
really just saving.
It is saving. It is saving in a different direction. It is saving by buying stocks, or by investing in something that you can acquire for that 15% or 10% that you're putting away. Now, beyond that, I have my 15% or my 10%, but if I want to become wealthy, I cannot save my way or shrink my budget to make me wealthy. I have to increase my income. Bottom line, in order to change your trajectory and your retirement path, you have to increase your investable assets. You have to increase whatever you can invest in order to do that. And the only way to actually do that is through passive income streams. So what does that mean? If I save
Cash flow,
we've heard the adage, cash is king, for years, right? And it may be in the short run, but in the long run, cash flow is what matters. And that's why when we're putting together retirement strategies for people, we look at their income streams in retirement that will not run out. We don't look at how much lump sum cash they have in those vehicles. So passive income, where can it come from? What are some examples?
Passive income can come from real estate. We hear this all the time now, right? You've got so many short-term rentals out there, whether it's a long-term rental with traditional, buy an investment property, hold the house, rent it out to somebody else, have that passive income coming in, the difference with what you owe and what you make. But you also have the short-term rental markets with Airbnb and Vrbo, or your semi-short-term, right? With your travel nurses and people like that. There's a huge opportunity to make money off of that real estate that's sitting there and allow that income to become passive. And we've talked about this. I'll go on this tangent just a second, then we can talk about other pieces of passive income. But there are great opportunities to go out and buy that passive income stream, because that's what you're buying, right? Is passive income with these rental properties with a small amount of money down. And that small amount of money, if it only takes me, $10,000, $15,000 to put into this property, to own it, to buy it, to leverage my $10,000 to $15,000, and I can make, even if I only make $500 a month, right? And in year 2.5, I'm back in the black. I'm making money now, and now I have this equity that's growing. I've got this income stream that's growing. So as we prepare for retirement, and as we prepare for wealth, we need to think about what can pay me. Your income from your job will stop, period, right? It will stop when you stop. If you're a traditional employer, your income from your job will stop. Even if you save $1 million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever your bucket list number is now, in your 401k and your savings through work. Once you stop working, then you start drawing against that. That isn't wealth, that is savings, right? Because you're using it. It's not growing for you and compounding for you. You're using it. So things like rental properties for passive income, businesses, right? And some people don't have the ability to invest in startups. There are plenty of people that do, right? Big risk, big reward, assuming the startup makes it, right? But having that ability to take this small amount of money and give it that risk and leverage into that. But if you don't have the money to invest in startups, then create a startup. Maybe it's your sweat equity, right? Maybe it's your blood, sweat, and tears in a business that's going to pay you a passive income stream at some point in time. But obviously you have some passive income from the markets and things like that with some different investment choices, but anything like that that will pay you when you're not working. We talked about this a few weeks ago. We talked about the cash flow quadrant, going from, employee to self-employed to business owner to investor. This is the I quadrant that we're talking about. This is how to make your money work for you, how to make your money pay you. I don't know if technically it would be considered passive income, but I think for the purpose of this, even annuities could be considered passive income because you put that lump sum there and it's going to be guaranteed for your life if you set it up properly. I think that could be a great way to guarantee that income source that now you aren't working for.
And that's that's the reality of any asset that you have, whether it be equity in a home. If you're not taking rent, that money is just sitting there, or money in a 401k ultimately has to be converted into an income stream of some sort in order for it to pay you an income. And so that's what we look at. Equity in a home is simply just sitting there until you sell or refinance to pull it out, right? So that's one of the reasons, not that this is a real estate class today, but that's one of the reasons we talk to people about not focusing on being debt-free in retirement, but focus on being financially free, which means I have debt, that's fine, but I can pay my debt and I'm making money off of my debt. Banks borrow money. They borrow money all the time and they make a lot of money. So the scenario here is I have to be ahead of where I am. And that's why we say, if you have $100,000, why would you pay cash for a $100,000 house that's going to pay you $1,500 a month in rent when I could pay $10,000 down on 10 $100,000 houses that would pay me considerably more, even though I'm carrying the debt and paying the mortgages on those. I'll also have tax deductions and other things. So being debt-free should not necessarily be one of your retirement goals. It should be being financially free enough to make choices and to service that debt. What you don't want to be is beholden to your debt. You don't want to be upside down or backwards and those kind of things. So that's a whole nother conversation about good debt versus bad debt. But I think you can kind of draw from what we're saying a little bit about what we mean.
But I think it is a mindset shift. It's a mindset shift for all of us. And, our oldest, we're having this conversation with her right now because we bought a house with her a couple of years ago, finishing up college. It just made sense. It was cheaper than rent. We had to rent something anyway. So we bought that house with her. And now because she has a job and I'm like, hey, let's get you moving forward. I'm like, okay, Emma, because that house is technically our house, right? You can live in it and you can even rent it and use the money while you're in school. But when you're out, it's our house, right? We're going to do something with that money. But now that you have a job and you have the ability, let's buy another house for you. And this can be just your house. And let's buy a little bit bigger house. Of course, you'll have a roommate, but you're all you're obviously 22, 23. You can have a roommate. You'll be fine, right? Or buy a duplex or buy something like that. But to teach her about that cash flow and property conversation that we're having with all of you guys. And she's our daughter. She's 22. She'll be 23 in July. She's heard us for her entire life. And she's scared, right? From a scarcity mentality perspective, if she's watching, and I'm sure she'll yell at me later, but she's nervous about having two properties with her name on it. And what if she can't afford to pay the rent? What if she can't afford to pay the mortgage? I know, and most of you guys know, that you can easily rent those properties, even if it's a long-term rental, and at least cover the mortgage payment. There's zero concern for me in my brain at all. But her brain, because she's just starting in this world, she's a little nervous, right? I don't really want to, that doesn't feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And I think for all of us, I think that's one of the things that we need to remember is that sometimes it won't feel comfortable. Sometimes you have to stretch, but I don't know that I've ever stretched to make a decision, especially a financial decision, that I haven't been happy with later.
Well, that's what growth is stretching, right? That's what we have to do to grow, is to reach, to stretch. And I see Cece's hand up, and I see some comments coming in. It is time for Q&A. This is why I think this conversation deserves another week at least, or more. And in our event that we're going to be doing down the road, that we'll be talking about soon, we'll spend a lot of time on this in person. But to answer the question in chat, the questions about Dave Ramsey and his trainings causing people to be poor at retirement. I don't make it a habit of talking bad about anybody and their advice and where they're going with it. What I want everybody to do is to see where they're coming from and to see what their main audience is. So if our goal is to teach, we have more credit card debt now in our country, which is bad debt, let's be clear, than we did in 2008 before that collapse. We are now in just as bad of a position as a federal government, raising debt ceilings and spending money we don't have. So understanding bad debt and eliminating it is fine. We've also been in the mortgage business for years, and we have had people that were completely debt-free with $600,000 in the bank that followed Dave Ramsey's advice, and they could not qualify to buy a house because they had no credit. So you have to understand all of these pieces that go into that. And remember, your personal economy might be helped by some of Dave Ramsey's tactics and tools, but to sell out completely to one blanket statement is why you need to look at all the information and where it's coming from. So he's not trying to make people broke. He is making some money off of his fancy envelopes and those kind of things. But I appreciate what his goal was when he started, which was to get people out of bad debt and to teach them how to be disciplined. So when we become disciplined, we need to focus on what gets us now from our disciplined state to our wealthy state. So Cece, what's your hand up? Let's open it up for some questions.
Thank you so much. I grew up from a family that was in debt all the time, credit card debt. We never had any savings, and I multiplied that. I initially lived off of credit cards in hopes of getting a better job to, pay for it. And that never happened. And what I learned is, yes, real estate does multiply. You don't have to physically work for it. So I just didn't have an advisor to help me get through these processes, nor that I had people around me that were wealthy enough to kind of like coach me like you guys are coaching us. And so today my outlook is from a view of the past, but now I can see myself in the future as an older adult, and I'd like to plan for the future and leave something for somebody in the family and possibly train them how to manage it and take care of it so that it could move forward in the future, not lose. So thank you so much for this conversation, because I too want to invest more into real estate and not be fearful or not put all money down to pay for a house, but to use it as leverage to buy several and know that rent is going to be around forever because people did not plan like I did. I'm not renting, but I would like to see myself in a wealthier mindset and a wealthier place. And thank you. And I pass.
Well, you're welcome. I think that was very, very well said. And now with the internet and all of these different things that we have at our fingertips, we can borrow the knowledge and the experience and the life choices of people that are more financially successful from us, because we can listen to them, right? We can plug in. I think Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad, we've talked about him a lot in the last couple of weeks. He did a ton for all of us just in our mindset, just teaching us that it's possible, right? There's money everywhere. It's just, how do you access that? How do you grab it? And one more thing to you, Cece, before I let Zack speak, but I think for you, leaving a legacy for your family and all of that is awesome, and it's amazing, and it's noble. But I think an easy place to start for anyone is teach them how important financial education is, and teach them that financial education that you're learning right now, because then maybe they aren't 40, 50, 60, 70 when they finally figure it out. And if we can just, take a few years off of their understanding and have them start earlier so they see the world differently, I think that's the biggest legacy you could ever live, because it allows them and it teaches them, instead of you just giving them an asset, giving them that knowledge so they can make different choices, I think is the best investment you could ever make.
Yep. All right. Who else has something to add before we wrap up, or a question about something we've said this morning? Well, I will tell you guys this, and just interrupt me if you have a question or you have something to add. But I will tell you that knowledge, knowledge in itself is not power. Knowledge, when applied properly, can create power or can give you leverage. So we talk to people about knowledge doesn't create action, but action creates knowledge. So if I want to learn something, I have to dive into that area. I have to ask people that know. I have to put myself in a position to learn it, right? And then when I learn what to do, I have to physically do it in order to make a change. So you're in the right place now. I hope that you're learning something. I hope we're bringing some value to you guys. We're excited about where the Daily Huddle is headed, and where we're all as a group, and where we want this to go for you guys and for us to explore becoming wealthy. And so that we can kind of all go down that path together. And we want to empower people to know that it is possible. So it's not, I can't afford it. And I may have said this before, it's not I can't afford it, it's how can I afford it? Those are the questions that you need to be asking yourself. So doesn't mean go out and make poor choices and buy things you can't afford right now. It means if you want something, set a goal and figure out how you can afford it. So that being said, guys, we're excited again to be here and about what we're talking about. So we're going to continue this next week. We'll give you another good question to ponder, and we'll do that shortly. It'll come out over the Daily Huddle Network. So it's good to see your faces, and why don't we go ahead, and if you got anything you want to wrap up with?
Our 8 tenants.
Well, I got that right. I just didn't want to jump the gun, maybe you guys just are writing your questions down, but let's remember as we go out into the world today to love, laugh out loud, stress less, eat mostly plant-based, give, sleep, move, and finally, check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? Oh, think before you speak. It's always tough. So again, guys, it's good to see you, and we will see you same time, same place tomorrow on the Daily Huddle.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. Excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.